Okay, so this is general form. Why don't we start by saying what is A, what is B, and what is C? So A is the number 3, then a 12, and a -4. I don't know where you're gonna run into this. Eventually you are gonna run into this, but what if I wrote something like this? Do you understand that A is still 3? It's not necessarily the order, like what's first, second, and third. A is the answer to how many x squareds you have. Okay?
That makes so much sense.
So you could see it, I might trick you. Okay, I might trick you and write it in a mixed up order. But you still have to pick A is the x squared part. Math, we usually write it in decreasing order, so you usually see it like this, but this is how I would try to trick you. Okay, vertex. So we're using that little formula, -b over 2a. So -12 over, so I did the opposite there. If we have a +12, I do -12 over 2 times 3. Okay, again, if you're typing in your calculator, you have to put divide brackets, but I'm very confident you can do this in your head. What's the bottom worth? What's 2 times 3? 6. What's -12 divided by 6? -2. So my vertex is -2, comma, don't know. How do we figure that part out? You put it in, you plug it in. So 3 times -2 squared plus 12 times -2 minus 4. If I know the x, I plug it in to get the output y. Okay, again, I'm going to do this all in my head. I feel like either you're good at your calculator and you won't make mistakes if you know what you're typing. Otherwise, it's probably even better just to do it in your head. So -2 squared is 4. So this would be 12. This would be subtract 24 minus 4. So here I'm at -12 minus 4 is -16.
What about -4?
What's the -4?
Did you do that?
Yep. I did those two subtracted was -12. And then after the -12, I went down 4 more.
Okay, that makes sense.
Did you get there? Okay, slope 3, because it's the a number, it's the multiplier with the x squared, which means it's going to open upward.
It's bigger than 1.
Because it's positive, and it will be more narrow. Axis of symmetry, x equals, you always have to have x equals, that's where I get people who forget. Cuts through -2. The domain, -infinity to positive infinity. And the range, so I'm visualizing that upward, so some number to infinity. -16 to infinity. I'm going to take the y part of the vertex because that would be the height part. And what's our y-intercept that fast? -4. So I put the 0 in for the x, which made that disappear, -4. So I'm going to just give a super simple sketch here.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not going to do too much detail. Let's just do a super simple sketch. That's all I'm doing. Very simple. -2, -16. And I knew that the y-intercept was that. It's opening upward. It's going to be pretty narrow. Okay. How much factoring do you remember from grade 10?
Nothing. Oh, this is just general course. It's a Monday morning.
You did a whole unit on factoring.
Maybe I should have thrown out my things.
Do you remember these words that have been used? Simple trinomial,
No.
GCF,
What?
difference of squares, complex trinomials.
It was COVID time at that point. It was online.
No, don't have that excuse anymore. Okay.
I shouldn't have thrown out my factoring.
This point on in your life here at Miller with pre-calc, that's basically all you do is factor. Every day you just factor.
Yeah.
Yep, we're reaching that point. Okay, I promise it'll come back. It'll come back. Okay, general form. Give me the A. What number is with the x squared? 1. What number is with the x? And then -8. Boom, what's the y-intercept?
-8.
The slope? 1. Okay, we'll come back to the x-intercepts. Let's do the vertex. So -b over 2a.
Is it -2?
Yes, which makes +2. So +2. So we just, all I say is think the opposite. So if you have a -2, put a +2. Over 2 times 1. So the bottom is just a 2. So what is 2 divided by 2? 1. And now I must do what? Plug it in. So 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 8. Okay. So this is now something new, the x-intercepts. Okay, so we just did a y-intercept idea, and a y-intercept was when x was 0. So an x-intercept is therefore going to be when what's happening?
When y is 0.
Okay, here's the problem. There's no possible way with algebra to isolate a variable
So now we have to factor.
because x squareds and x's are different ideas. Think about this. Could you combine square footage and linear footage with each other mathematically? You can't put them together. Okay, so x squareds and x's are different things. So the only way to solve this is factoring. So factoring is you taking that foiling process. You've probably heard that word before, foiling, and working backwards. Okay, FOIL says the first times the first has to make that.
X.
X times X. Foiling means the last times the last need to make that. So I could do a 2, 3, or 2, 3, 2, 4, or an 8 and 1. But those numbers have to add to that. So 4 times 2 makes the 8 part.
-4 positive.
And see, it's coming back. Those numbers have to multiply. Yep. They have to multiply to that and add to that. Obviously, with the -8, one of them would have to be positive, one negative. So here's me foiling. You don't need to write this down, but x squared. Out and in make 2x minus 4x, which together makes that. Last times last makes that. Did it kind of start to come back into play? No, don't remember that? Okay. Now my question is, to make this all be 0, and you're multiplying two things, obviously one of the things has to be 0 to get a 0 on the multiply. How do I make this bracket turn to a 0? What would x have to be? Positive 4, because 4 subtract 4 is 0, and now if I'm using that to multiply, I'll get a 0.
So as long as just flip the sign.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And what number would have to be in this spot? -2 plus 2 causes a 0 multiplier. Okay, you ready? I'm going to graph. So I had a y-intercept of -8. That's one thing we wrote. I had 1, -9 as a vertex. We wrote that. And then we said the x-intercepts are 4 and -2. Is it going to make a parabola somehow?
Yeah, probably.
You know what? Can you find the partner to this point? Its partner would be 2, -8. Okay, I didn't ask this, but I'm going to just draw this in. This is the axis of symmetry. Right? Everyone's agreeing? X equals 1 is the axis of symmetry. Here's something that happens. How far away are the x-intercepts, each of them? This is 3 to the right of it, and this is 3 to the left of it. So this is the relationship. The axis of symmetry, or the vertex, is in the middle. So it depends on what my question might be in that situation. You might be asked a few questions. I might give you the axis of symmetry and you have to figure out where the x-intercept is, or I might give you 2 x-intercepts and you figure out where the axis is. But that's the pattern. Okay, let's try one more of those then. Okay, so this is the same thing. Let's try to do it a little faster. So 1x squared. 4x and a -12. The y-intercept, if I was to eliminate x with zeros, I get -12. The slope is 1. we're going to jump down to the vertex. So I'm going to start with the negative b over 2a. So that's negative 2. Now I'm going to plug it in. Okay, so here's what I know. I kind of did not do my graph right in the middle. I'm a little bit to the right-hand side of that. We did a vertex, we did a y-intercept. Could you figure out the partner to this y-intercept? Where would its partner go? Would that make sense? So what I did to get that partner is I thought, well, I guess I could imagine my axis line, the symmetry line, right? And I just flip-flopped it 2 and 2. So there's the partners. Okay, you ready for our x-intercept time? Okay, so we know x-intercepts are y equals 0. Okay, so we should understand at this point with algebra, you can't solve for x in an isolation method. You can't get it alone, so therefore we're going to have to factor. So these that I'm giving you right now are just simple trinomials. So x times x, what multiplies to the end and adds to the middle. 6 times 2, or did you pick? So that could get me a 12 and add to a 4 somehow. 6 positive, 2 negative, because I need to make it a positive 4. So x equals what number? Negative 6 and positive 2. That's what's causing that equation to turn into 0. So if I was to graph it, negative 6 and 2, and then I see all the symmetry stuff happening. Are you noticing the pattern that it is exactly, the vertex is halfway in between those? That's always going to be the situation. They're halfway in between. Okay, I'm gonna do the next one tomorrow.